Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is take. This is actually day 4 of our discussion about the verb take, and that's because there are so many different meanings or ways to use this particular verb. Let's look at a few more now. The first is to experience or be affected by something. Recently read a newspaper article that was unfortunately talking about someone who had taken a beating. So they experienced, again, kind of violence, um, and they didn't know who it was or why they were attacking that particular person. A second way you might hear take used is to react in a certain way. Sometimes, as we've had to share difficult news or information with people, it's common to hear how did they take it? So, how did they react to you sharing that news? A third way you might hear the verb take used is to mean to tolerate or endure something. Many times with this particular meaning, you're going to hear it in the negative. So, where I live, it has been extremely hot all week, and for large portions of the day, it has felt like it's more than 100 degrees outside. So, there are many people this week saying, oh, I can't take this heat, or I can't take this humidity, meaning I can't tolerate it. I'm going inside where there's air conditioning. A fourth way you might hear take used is to mean to perform an action or a task. Sometimes, even though I'm closing in on 300 videos, I can still feel a bit nervous. So before I start, I might take a deep breath, right, to try and relax or calm myself. A fifth way you might hear take used is to mean to require or use up a certain amount of time. Again, connected to these videos, many of them take somewhere between 11 and 16 minutes, right? So that's how much time is used up or required to watch one. Please remember that take is an irregular verb. To make the progressive tense, you're going to drop the E and then add ing to form taking. The past tense form of this verb is spelled T-O-O-K and is pronounced took. The participle form of this verb adds an N to our base verb and it's pronounced taken. Now we are almost ready to move on to our phrasal verbs, but as a quick reminder, if this happens to be the first video on the verb take that you're watching, I'm going to encourage you to go to parts 1, 2, and 3 for even more definitions or ways you can use this verb. Now we are ready to start our last group of phrasal verbs. So all this week, all of our videos have had a different group of phrasal verbs. Today we're going to start with take out of. This is a phrasal verb that can have a couple different meanings. One is to remove someone or something from some place. An example of this could be, I took their muddy shoes out of the house. So the person who's saying this is describing removing dirty, muddy shoes, letting them dry outside. Okay? And this example sentence is also the simple past tense, so you can see that irregular form there, took. Okay? The second way you can use take out of is to mean to consume a great deal of energy or emotion. And with this particular meaning, you're always going to separate the verb take and then the prepositions out of. Let's look at an example sentence. Attending my friend's funeral today has taken a lot out of me, right? So that can be kind of an emotionally tiring event, right? So many memories, might be a very emotional, sad event. You might be seeing other people you haven't talked to in a while. So, this particular experience is consuming a great deal of energy and emotion. The next phrasal verb we're going to look at is take over. But before we do that, I should say has taken a lot out of me and is an example of the present perfect. Now to take over. This can also have a couple different meanings. We're going to focus on two. One is to adopt a responsibility or a duty from someone else. And this might be very temporary. It doesn't have to be, but frequently it is used that way. And you'll see that in this example sentence. I'll take over for you while you're on break, right? So maybe this is someone who works in a customer-facing role, and so that there always needs to be somebody ready to answer a phone call or greet someone who's coming in. So this will take over is an example of the simple future. Someone is probably making an offer to help. A second way to use take over would mean to assume control. Could be of a business, of a territory. I remember seeing takeover used in history class many times to kind of describe different events. You can see that in the example sentence here. Germany took over Austria in March 1938. Okay, so they assumed control of the land, the country, that territory. The next phrasal verb we're going to look at is take through. It can also have a couple different meanings. The first meaning is one that we're going to separate. So you'll see take, then you'll have the object, and then the preposition through. And this generally means to explain something to someone. Here's an example of that. He's going to take us through the plans for this weekend. Here's another example of the simple future, but this time we're using be going to and the base verb. The second way you might hear take through used is also separable. It means to guide someone through a particular place. An example of that, her new teacher took her through the school. This is another example of the simple past tense. The next phrasal verb we'll look at is take up. This can also have a number of different meanings. We're going to focus on three today. The first is to begin an activity regularly, so kind of starting a new habit, or it could be just meaning starting something new. Another verb you might hear is initiate. Let's look at an example. He's taken up yoga during the pandemic. So this is an example of the present perfect. So the apostrophe S here is a shortened form of has. It's not always a shortened form of is, and that can be tricky in English. But we're describing this new activity, new habit that has been started during a period of time. A second way you might hear take up used is to mean to occupy or consume time or space. An example of that could be, this paperwork takes up so much time. Here, takes up is being used in the simple present. The third way you might use take up is to mean to raise or lift something to a higher position or a higher location. An example of that, did you take the boxes up to the attic? Right? So generally in most houses, the attic is kind of in the top floor or top level. This is an example of a simple past tense question, yes or no. The next phrasal verb we'll look at is to take up on. Now, this phrasal verb also tends to be separated, so we'll have something come between the verb take and the prepositions up and on. An example of that, and that means to accept an offer. That's important to know. Okay, so you might hear it used like this. I'll take you up on your offer to drive, right? So maybe two people are making plans and one person says, hey, I'll drive. The person goes, okay, I accept that, I agree. The last phrasal verb you might hear is take up with. This means to address some sort of issue or problem. A common way you might hear it is, you can take this up with the manager. Right? So sometimes as you work with a particular person, there might be a conflict and you might need help resolving or addressing that conflict. So going to a supervisor or manager might be one way to do that. Now, let's spend just a little time looking at some related words and phrases with the verb take. The first noun we're going to look at is take over. Remember, take over was a phrasal verb. And as a phrasal verb, it's two separate words, but as a noun, it's a compound word. Okay? The meaning here for this particular noun is the act of assuming control of something. An example of this could be in business, a hostile takeover occurs when one company acquires a target company by going to the target's shareholders to replace management. Now, this sentence may be a little difficult to understand, but if you're studying business or law, this is a particular thing that will come up, and it frequently happens with really large corporations, generally not a small business. Another related phrase you might hear with take is take it or leave it. When someone says this, what they mean is they are unwilling to negotiate with you. Let me give you a situation. You go to a garage sale, you see something you like, and there's a price tag on it. It says $20. You think, I like it and I want to buy it, but 20 is too much. So you ask, will you take $10 for it? The person might go, I'll take 15, take it or leave it. So at that point, they're saying, okay, after $15, I'm not willing to go any lower. I'm not going to accept your offer. You can see that in my example sentence here. This is my final offer. Take it or leave it. So take it means accept the offer. Leave it means walk away, but do not continue to try and negotiate. The next phrase we'll look at is to take one's time. This means that someone should not rush or should not hurry through something. Used in a sentence, you can take your time with this project. So maybe there's no due date or no deadline with it. The last phrase we're going to look at is take the stand. If you hear this used, it is referring to someone who's going to testify in a court of law. An example of this phrase in a sentence might be, the star witness will take the stand tomorrow. So generally, if you're going to participate and testify, so share what you observed or share what you experienced in a court, you sit in a place that's sort of raised up a little bit off the ground, and that's sometimes referred to as the witness stand, but sometimes it just gets shortened to the stand. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.